Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid YouTube channel. As always, I am Bryson Carver. Great to be back in the studio. Haven't been here in about a week. Just got home from vacation to the happiest place on earth, Walt Disney World. Actually did a show from my hotel room, from my resort hotel room last Friday. So back-to-back Friday shows. It's very rare. Wasn't able, just because the crazy schedule. Anybody who's been to Disney World will know, crazy schedule on Monday, wasn't able to do a show, and then travel back home yesterday, so I wasn't able to do a show then. But in the last week, in between when I've been gone and since I've been back, my goodness, lots happened in the NBA. And some things have happened in the NFL, like the schedule release last night, which I will get to. I thought one team in particular got really screwed by the schedule makers. I'll get to that team later in today's show, as well as the big one of the night. To me, the game that decides the series. Lakers-Warriors, Game 6 in Los Angeles. If the Lakers win, they advance. If the Warriors win, there will be a Game 7 on Sunday. I'll get into that later in today's show. Looking forward to seeing that. We'll see my Warriors tie this series up. Also, Miami Knicks, probably the least talked about second-round series, but has been no less intriguing. It's been fat. I mean, Jimmy Butler plays awful in Game 5. He almost beat the Knicks, and then Jalen Brunson and company, R.J. Barrett, go off in the final minutes. I believe Brunson played all 48 minutes. I'll get to that Knicks Heat series later in the show. Denver shellacking Phoenix in Game 6 last night. Not all that surprising to me, but I'll get into that game later in the show, and as well as give the Nuggets their props, because I haven't seen a whole lot of people in the national media doing that today. They should be, and ask for Phoenix what they need to do this offseason. So a lot has been going on in the NBA, and again, I will definitely get to the NFL schedule later. But first, I do this show on a normal basis, Monday, Thursday, Friday, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific time, on a normal basis. And whenever I'm doing a topic on, or rather a segment on something big that's happened in sports, NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL, college sports, anything, Olympics, the one thing I try and do my best, sometimes I succeed, sometimes I don't, but the one thing I try my very best not to be is repetitive. I think if you keep saying the same thing over and over, I mean, there's a healthy level of doing it. Maybe it drives the point home. It really maybe reinforces or gets the listener or the viewer yourself to maybe rethink something. That's one of my goals on my shows, to try and get the listener to think about something they never really thought about before about a certain take. But I never want to be repetitive. And one of the most repetitive, overused words in sports, in my view, and it's not even close, is choke. I think it's way too overused. There's a lot of situations where a team or an athlete, let's talk about teams, are supposed to play well or are supposed to win, and they don't. That doesn't necessarily always mean choke. Sometimes the other team was just better than you. Like, it literally, we go in the ins and outs, the X's and O's, all the above. Sometimes one team is just better than you. That happens all the time in sports. To me, and I've always been consistent on this, I think choke jobs happen way less often than we think. But here's how I define a choke job. You lost. Not only did you lose, but the moment looked too big for you. Be it your body language, be it your play, in most cases, a combination of the two, the moment looked too big for you and you shrank. That, my friends, is what the Philadelphia 76ers did last night in Game 6 against the Boston Celtics. So this has been a great series from start to finish, and it's fitting. I guess it's only right that for we the fans and for just everything involved, whether or not the Lakers or Warriors, whether or not there was a game in 7 in that series, we're guaranteed a Game 7 on Sunday between Philly and Boston. Philly wins Game 1. James Harden is awesome. No Joel Embiid. Game 2, Embiid comes back. He'd just been named MVP. Tatum plays awful, and yet Boston destroys Philadelphia. Boston goes to Philly on Embiid's MVP night and wins. In Game 4, which was the best game of the series, Harden plays awesome, hits the game-tying shot to go to overtime, and hits the game-winning 3 in the corner to win it. Game 5, Philly goes back to Boston. Second win at the TD Garden on the Celtics home floor. And then last night, the Celtics win by a final score of 95-86. And this, my friends, was a choke job. Few reasons. Number one, Joel Embiid. I love him. I think with all due respect to the greatness that is Nikola Jokic. People think I hate Jokic because I don't think he should have won the last 2 MVPs. That's not it at all. I just don't think he was the most valuable player in the league. And I think too often the NBA media changes the narrative. I've never said he isn't amazing. But with all due respect, I think Embiid is the better player. And I think he should have won the MVP this year. But this is why anytime, and it doesn't happen too often, but it happens from time to time, is Embiid the best player in the world? I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. First of all, he's never even been to a conference finals, and that could change on Sunday. I'm not saying Philadelphia has no chance to win Game 7. They absolutely have a chance. They've won 2 games in Boston. But too often, and this happens a lot with young players, but Embiid came in the league in 2014. He didn't debut until 2016. So this is really his 7th year in the NBA. Folks, Embiid's 7 years in, and he's still sort of fallen back in the same bad habits that he had early in his career. For example, his teammate James Harden deserves blame for it too. But when Embiid gets the ball, it's jab step. Maybe he'll back somebody down the block, or if he gets it, it's jab step, fake, jab step. Then he'll shoot it. That gives the defense time to rest. Again, it's what I've criticized his teammate James Harden on, and I'll get to Harden in a minute. It's what I've criticized him for years. This is, as Charles Barkley would say, dribble. It dribbles the air out of the ball, takes the life out of the offense, and gives the defense a rest. They don't have to work as hard. It's what's made Golden State so successful for the last decade is because everybody is moving, in particular the best player, Steph Curry, who literally never stops moving. It keeps the defense, in limbo. They're having to switch. They're having to adjust on the fly. Not the case with Embiid. It's what I think it's hurt Luka Doncic at times. Certainly this year. This ISO basketball. And Embiid, by the way, for the record, by his standards, had a bad game. 9 for 19, 0 for 2 from 3, and 26 points. But again, the 26 points came on inefficient shooting. And then you have Doc Rivers, who all the numbers have been thrown out today. And remember when I did my playoff weaknesses coming into the postseason? And I went to Philadelphia. I said it's the 3 guys. Embiid's health, which played factor in this series, but only for 1 game, which the Sixers won. So it hasn't really been a huge factor. Embiid's health concerned me because he's always hurt this time of year. Harden's playoff history, which I will get to in just a second. And Doc Rivers' playoff history. Do you realize, ladies and gentlemen, that Doc Rivers is 0 for his last 8 on chances to go to the conference finals? 0 for 8. Or really, now that I think about it, it might be 0 for 9. If you think about 2012 against the Miami Heat, 0 for 2. You think about 2015 blowing a 3-1 lead with the Clippers, 0 for 3. You think about 2020 in the bubble, up 3-1, lost all 3. So now that I think about it, it's actually 0 for 9. When Doc Rivers has a chance to get to the conference finals, he's lost his last 9 games. It's the lack of adjustments. It's not having his team ready to play. It's the sort of weird, nonchalant vibes I get from him on the bench when Boston's getting back in the game. They feel good about themselves. They go on these long runs, and he's just sitting back chilling on the bench. Not coaching him, not making any sort of, not motivating us. Hey, let's go. Or, calling a play for the bench. He's just kind of sitting there on his hands doing nothing. It's like, Doc, the game's starting to slip away. What's going on? Not to mention, 7 times Doc Rivers has blown a 3-2 lead in a series, and 3 times, which this hasn't even been done twice, 3 times he has been the head coach of a team that has blown a 3-1 deficit. I love Doc as a human being, but kind of has a history of this. And when it comes back out, we have every right to criticize him. As we do the 76ers point guard, James Harden, who Again, I haven't done a whole lot of shows in the last week because going on vacation, but trust me, I've been watching this Philly-Boston series. And for majority of the first 5 games, James Harden has been spectacular. You think about the 45 in game 1? You think about it, I think it was 43, if I'm not mistaken, on incredible efficiency in that game 4, really kind of carrying the Sixers. Embiid was good, but Harden was better in that game 4, which kind of saved the Sixers season for the time being. He played pretty well in game 5. But it's always that thing, like when you expect the most from James Harden, like, okay, James, you're almost there. Take us to the finish. Whether it be he runs out of gas, whether it be similar to Embiid, and there's more, I put more blame on Harden in this regard because he's older than Embiid. He's been through way more playoff runs than Embiid. He's been deeper in the playoffs than Embiid. He's a veteran, unlike Embiid. Falling the same bad habits. ISO, one-on-one, dribbling at the shot clock, taking ill-advised shots, turning the ball over. And an argument can be made that once Jayson Tatum went on that scoring tear, and I'll get to Tatum in a minute, James Harden was probably the worst starter on the floor last night. James Harden, in 43 minutes, 4 for 16 for the field, 0 for 6 from three-point range, 13 points. He also had 5 turnovers. It's who he is. It's who he's always been. And he's got a game 7. That's the beauty for Philadelphia. As bad as you played, and while it sucks you go to get on the road because you couldn't take care of business at home, only scoring 86 points, and some credit belongs to Boston. I want to be clear on that, but Philadelphia scoring 86 points at home, that's inexcusable. You get a game 7 in a building that you've won twice this series. It's not over for the Sixers. But man, if they lose on Sunday, we're going to come back to this game. How you lose when you're at home with Embiid, who's playing awesome in the series outside of game 2, with Harden, who's probably been the best player in the series since the jump, since game 1. You're up 3-2, all the momentum. Jayson Tatum, until the final minutes, was 1 for 14. Scored 3 points. The best player on the other team scored 3 more points than you and I did, sitting on our couches watching the game until about the 5-minute mark. And you find a way to lose almost by double digits. I've never bought into Philly as a true title contender this season. I remember when I did my pretenders and contenders coming out of the All-Star break. I always do it every year coming out of the All-Star break. Okay, we got about 20-some games left to go. Who's the real contenders? Who's the pretenders? Like I've changed my opinion on some of them, like the Lakers. I had as pretenders, but about a month after that, I'm like, okay, I'm into the Lakers. Like, I love how they're playing basketball. Love the moves that Pelinka made. The pieces all fit. LeBron's playing well. AD's playing well. This is a championship contender. The one pretender that I've never backed off for a second was Philadelphia, because I don't trust them in these particular moments. For me, you got to show me. You got to give me evidence to believe that I can trust you in these high leverage situations. It's the very reason. I remember I caught a lot of criticism for this on social media and otherwise when I did my pretenders and contenders segment 2.5 months ago. And I had the Heat as contenders. People are like, well, you got to be kidding me. They're the 7 seed. They can't shoot. They can't string together 3-4 good games in a row. I said, I don't care. I've got Jimmy Butler and I've got Eric Spoelstra. Figure out the rest. Miami will be fine. And here's the Miami Heat. Shocker, shocker. They win tonight. 3rd time in 4 years. They'll be going to the Eastern Conference Finals. And in Philadelphia, lost in Game 7 in 2019. Actually, 4 years ago to this day on the Kawhi Leonard crazy walk-off buzzer-beating shot. You think about 2021, in which they've got a Game 7 at home against freaking Atlanta, when Trae Young, if you remember that game, was awful. They lose that series. Game 6 last year against the Heat, Harden was awful. Embiid wasn't good. And the Heat win that game. What evidence do I have from the three central, key, most important guys in the Philadelphia 76ers? What evidence do I have that they can go win a massive game at home with a chance to go to the Eastern Conference Finals? Why should I believe? For the Heat, why shouldn't I believe? Golden State, why shouldn't I believe? Lakers, same thing. I'm still waiting on Philadelphia to have that one key signature moment. Last night didn't come as a surprise to me whatsoever. Now, again, positive outlook. There's not a whole lot of that in the city of Philadelphia. There's a game 7. The old saying goes, anything can happen in a game 7. You never know who will step up, who won't step up, if there's a bad call by the official, if there's a certain break that goes your way, if you have a guy come off the bench and just, shoot the lights out, you never know. God forbid, knock on wood, an injury. 48 minutes to decide who plays, in all likelihood, in my view, the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals, in which you'll, by the way, have home court advantage. Regardless, even if the Knicks advance, you'll still have home court advantage because they'll be the 5 seed. They have a chance to right these wrongs. Make no mistake about it. Last night, and I don't use this word, it was a choke job. Simple as that. To Boston. I've had a lot of questions about Boston this season. I'm a big Jayson Tatum defender. I think, the other day, congrats to him. He was just named, I believe rightfully so, first team All-NBA for the second year in a row. And when Jayson Tatum's gotten so much criticism, my thing has always been, he's back-to-back first-team All-NBA. He led his team to the finals last year. And if it's not for Steph Curry having the biggest game of his career in Game 4 last year in the finals, Boston probably goes up 3-1 in that series. And while I still think my Warriors could have come back and won, very good chance the Celtics would have won a championship. Like, Tatum is he's not really good. He's a great player. He's a great player. I almost wonder if Jayson Tatum is like the Dak Prescott of the NBA. Tatum's better at basketball than Dak is at playing quarterback, but he's really good, consistently. He's just never going to be Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Trevor Lawrence or Joe Burrow. If you expect Dak to be that, you're wasting your time. He's never going to be that. If you're expecting Jayson Tatum to be Steph Curry or Kevin Durant or, Nikola Jokic, he's not that. But the mark of a great player, one of them, I should say, because there's a lot of things that go into being great, is when you are playing terrible. And Jayson Tatum was, straight garbage last night. Couldn't throw it in the ocean. Terrible. 1 for 14 to start the game. 3 points. And in the final minutes, score 16 to essentially ice the game and help the Celtics force a Game 7. That speaks to, number one, overall, an athlete's mental toughness. To say, I'm playing bad. That might have went down if that had continued as the worst game of Jayson Tatum's NBA career. But he didn't let it get to his head, didn't, drop his head, because he knows he's the leader of the Boston Celtics. Now, he's not much of a rah-rah leader. He's kind of the lead by example guy. But he is the face of the Celtics franchise. He is the man. Didn't drop his head, didn't sulk, didn't, ghost teammates, didn't sit by himself on the bench. Kept his head up, stayed focused, understood the fact that, hey, if I just make, the way this game was going and the defensive struggle that it was, if I just make a couple shots, we're going to win. And keeping that mindset, staying focused on the task at hand, and playing amazing for the last 5 minutes of the game. That is the mark of a great player. How many times have we seen, we talk about throwing strays or someone catching strays. I try not to do that, but I think today it's more than justified because of how he played last night. James Harden. How many times have we seen James Harden in massive do-or-die games play bad for 2.5, 3 quarters, and then just kind of, I hate to use this word as well, but quit? Think about Game 6 against the Spurs in 2017. Think about Game 6 last year against the Miami Heat. It's kind of his history. Like when things aren't going well, he just kind of, well, guess that's how it's going to be. Not Jayson Tatum. I've had questions about him in high leverage moments in terms of his aggressiveness. Plenty of playoff games where I'll be like, he took a big step last night. That is the mark of a great player. Not dropping her head, staying focused on the task at hand, and playing incredible for Boston. By the way, somebody else on the Celtics need to give a lot of credit to, who I have been skeptical at best on. Joe Mazzulla, the head coach, who I still don't think is near the coach Ime Udoka is. I think they really miss him. But he made the adjustment that Doc Rivers did not. Coming into Game 6, he took Derek White out of the starting lineup, put Robert Williams in it. How huge of a difference does that make? Robert Williams, last night, 10 points, 9 rebounds, was a plus 18, which tied for the best on the Celtics with Marcus Smart, was huge for Boston. Adjustments are key in playoff series, and your stars playing their best when their best is required, regardless of how they played for the first 3.5 quarters. Hats off to Jayson Tatum. Hats off to the Boston Celtics. I've got Boston winning Game 7, but I think it's going to be a close one. Okay, we got a couple comments here. Patrick Brown. Patrick says, if Philly had... Man, you could tell I've been off a week. My bad. Patrick, if Philly had Jimmy Butler over Tobias Harris and Ben Simmons, they'd be in a better spot. My goodness, no kidding. But this is their own undoing. James Harden's stats in closeout games are horrible. You're right. I should have put together James. Of course, maybe I'll do it after Game 7, depending on how Harden plays and how the Sixers play. He said James Harden's stats in closeout games are horrible. And Patrick also says Doc Rivers is likely fired. Harden heads back to Houston. Sixers title window is closing very slowly. When expectations mount for Harden, he flames out. The stats speak for themselves. Yep. Barry Grant Jr., All Even Podcast. What's up, Barry? He says, Nightmare on Elm Street has nothing on Doc Rivers in a Game 7. Scariest thing ever. Again, I will throw the stat out once again. Doc Rivers, with a chance to advance to the conference finals. Actually, no, it was, okay. Yeah, I messed up that stat earlier now that I think about it. I said to advance the conference finals. 2012 against Miami, that was in the conference finals when he was the head coach in Boston. When they were up 3-2 and LeBron had maybe the best game of his career in that Game 6, and then the Heat won in Game 7. So that's my bad. Doc Rivers, again, Barry said it. Nightmare on Elm Street is nothing on Doc Rivers, and he's bad at Game 7s. Doc is 0 for his last 7 with a chance to advance to the conference finals. Blew a 3-1 lead in 2015. Blew a 3-1 lead in 2020. Up 3-2 in a, by the way, he's blown a 3-1, 3-2 lead 7 times in his career. It's kind of who he is. Like, inability to make adjustments, not having his team ready to play, the whole bit. And while I like Doc as a person, I have never seen in my life a head coach get more leeway off of a championship, one championship that was won 15 years ago, than Doc Rivers. And by the way, not to take credit away from Doc, that Celtics team was stacked. It's one of the greatest starting fives of all time. Come on, man. It's been 15 years. Like, I think people are starting to finally come around on Doc Rivers, but Lord have mercy. Let's move on to Lakers-Warriors. Game 6 tonight, 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific, at the Crypt, which still sounds really weird to say, at Crypto.com Arena. Lakers have a 3-2 lead. So last time I did a show, Golden State won Game 2 convincingly. Klay Thompson had a big game. Steph Curry had 12 assists. They played well, even the series up. Since that point, the Lakers, after Golden State got off to a really good start in Game 3, I think went up by like 14 points in the second quarter. After that, it was all LA all day. Smacked the Warriors for the next 2.5 quarters, won the game by 30. Game 4, Steph was incredible with a triple-double and got literally no help after that. Klay was bad. Poole was Poole, scoreless. Draymond didn't play well. They got decent production from Moses Moody, but just nobody came for the party to help Steph out in Game 4. On the other hand, for the Lakers, while LeBron didn't play great, I know he had 27, but that was a quiet, and I love LeBron, but that's the quietest 27 points I've ever seen in my life. AD wasn't great toward the end of Game 4. Golden State did a good job on him. It was Lonnie Walker, who I've been campaigning for a long time. When is Lonnie Walker going to get minutes? And it's only fitting Lonnie Walker does get minutes in a meaningful game, and he burns my Warriors in game 4 with 15 points in the fourth quarter, hitting big shot after big shot, and helped the Lakers win that game 4 to go up 3-1. And while, unfortunately, there's no tape of me saying this because I didn't do it on the show, my social media history, you can check it on Twitter and Instagram, I have said it from the beginning. Golden State is still going to win this series, down 3-1, which now it's 3-2 because the Warriors did what they were supposed to do. I didn't see anybody pick the Lakers to win game 5. I think I saw a couple of people. The Lakers were not winning game 5 in Golden State. Like, Warriors desperate at home. They're a great home team. Lakers know they really don't have to win game 5. And the Golden State Warriors got the job done and won that game by a final score of 121-106. Steph played well. Draymond was amazing with 20. Wiggins gave you 28 points. He is, for the moment, questionable to play tonight, but from what I'm hearing from Warriors reporters, looks like he's going to be good to go. I think he's got a rib injury. And Golden State got good production at the bench. Jordan Poole, I believe, gave them double figures off the bench. Was it 11? Yeah, 11 points, albeit on 14 shots. So you have that. Gary Payton gave you 13. Kevon Looney played well. So Golden State's bench production, as you would imagine for role players at home, was much better. And I said after game 4 was over, and a lot of people wrote the Warriors off. Not me. Listen, I'm with my Dubs, ride or die. I've seen this story too many times. The whole dynasty's over thing. Remember how cute that was for 3 years? Being down 3-1 against Oklahoma City, being down 3-2 against Houston, being down 3-1 against Toronto, in which I still maintain to this very day, regardless of what happened to Kevin Durant. And that was a horrible injury suffered in game 5, tore the Achilles, we all remember. If Klay Thompson doesn't tear his ACL in game 6, I think the Warriors win that series. They definitely win game 6 because they almost won without Klay. They darn sure would have won with Klay the way he was playing. And I believe with the pressure mounting on Toronto, Golden State would have went up to Canada, up to Toronto, won game 7. Golden State historically, even Sacramento, let's just look at the last series, down 2-0. They win the next 3. They blow game 6, play terrible. Everybody did. And then Steph plays maybe the greatest game of his career, scores 50 in a game 7. It's never been done before. And Golden State smokes Sacramento in the last series. The Warriors tend to play their best basketball when their backs are against the wall. Throughout this dynasty, that's been the case. But I said when they were down 3-1, they'll win game 5. That they're not losing game 5. Guarantee it. Tonight's game 6 was the one that concerned me a little bit. First of all, the age-old rule in the NBA playoffs. Role players are way better at home than they are on the road. I think you're going to get solid performances from guys. I think Lonnie Walker, who was bad in game 5 after being amazing in game 4, I think Lonnie Walker is going to play well. I can see a scenario in which Austin Reeves plays better. He struggled at times in game 5. I envision D'Angelo Russell, while inefficient, he's been inefficient throughout the series, but he's kind of been an inefficient player throughout his career. I anticipate he'll play well. I know I've heard that Dennis Schroeder might be inserted in the starting lineup. I think that'd be a terrible move by Darvin Ham. Jared Vanderbilt's been really good in this series. Could you have guys come off the bench like, Hachimura play well? Maybe. And Golden State's role players, the other hand, which Steve Kerr is in all likelihood not listening to the show. But if there's anybody watching the show or listening to the show that knows Steve Kerr, could you pass this word on to him for me? Coach, I do not question your basketball knowledge for a millisecond. Could you please stop playing Jordan Poole? I don't want to see him on the floor for more than 5 minutes. Play him in the second quarter, bring him in to start the quarter, and if he goes back into Jordan Poole, take him out. Put him back on the bench. Don't let him see the floor. He's been garbage in the playoffs. Inefficient, taking bad shots, turning the ball over, not listening to Kerr, Draymond, or Steph. Going into tunnel vision, I've said all year, Jordan Poole is reminding me of Russell Westbrook, but less athletic and a better jump shot. That's what Jordan Poole is. This year, at least. He was great last year, horrible this year. Gary Payton, I anticipate will play well. Why? because Gary Payton has a game that travels well. It's about hustle. It's about defense. I mean, this one, Gary Payton's good and can play well regardless of any circumstance. There's video of the game 4 in LA where Gary Payton is on the floor. Looks like he literally vomited in his mouth. Finished the defensive possession, went out of the frame. Whoever was, TNT did that game, went out of the frame. I anticipate to, let that stuff out, ran back on the other end to play offense. Like, that's when I was like, okay, this dude's for real. Like, this dude's all in. I think Gary Payton will get good minutes. Kevon Looney is a monster on the glass. I think you'll get good minutes from him. Golden State's just going to need a couple role players. We'll see what you get from DiVincenzo, who's been hit or miss from game to game, depending on what, he's been, again, much better at home than on the road. But it all comes down to the stars. Steph's going to be Steph. Just go and put Steph up for 30 to 35, dare I say 40 points, because he knows he's going to have to be aggressive. I anticipate Steph will come out right out the gates, set a tone, send a message to the Lakers like, okay, if y'all win, y'all going to have to work for this one. Because I've heard a lot of Laker fans talk about, oh, you can't come back from 3-1 on us because we're not Sacramento. Well, yeah, true. You are better than Sacramento. And had you faced Sacramento, you would have taken them out in a gentleman's sweep. Much respect as I have for the Kings. But bad news, Lakers fans. We're not exactly Memphis. We don't exactly roll over and die in a game 6 and lose by 40. It's kind of not our brand. Steph will be Steph. Draymond will not give you 20 like he did in game 5. If he does, Lakers get blown out. Like if Draymond Green scores 20, it's a wrap. It's over. I think he'll give you 10, 11 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds, and great defense. Andrew Wiggins. Again, he's hurt. We'll see what we get from him. If he can give 16, 17 points, that'll be good enough. The key is Klay Thompson, who outside of game 2 has been really bad in the series. Had a game 1, played awesome in game 2, scored 30. Did not play well in game 3, was terrible in game 4, and really didn't play that well in game 5. We know about the mantra, the legend, the reality in most instances. Game 6 Klay. 2016 against Oklahoma City, in which, by the way, a series in which the Warriors were down 3-1 on the road against a team that everybody picked to beat Golden State once they went up 3-1, and Klay Thompson scored 41 and hit 12 threes. There was 11, no, I think it was 11 threes, which broke at the time the all-time single-game playoff record. That's where Game 6 Klay was born. Game 6 in 2018 against Houston, down 3-2. Klay scored, I believe, 35 points. Hit a number of threes. Game 6 against the Rockets in 2019. Played great. Scored 30. Game 6 of 2019 finals against Toronto. Scored 30 before he tore his ACL in the third quarter. Game 6 last year against Memphis. Scored 30. Now this year, Game 6 against Sacramento. I don't know what got into Klay. He scored 22, an inefficient 22. Wasn't all that good. Klay Thompson is the key. He's an LA kid. His dad, Michael Thompson, 2-time NBA champion, all the respect in the world to the great Michael Thompson, calls games on the radio for the Lakers. Klay's talking about he's got family and friends coming up to show up and watch him play at the Crypt. This is his moment. If Game 6 Klay shows up tonight, if Klay Thompson doesn't show up, but if Game 6 Klay shows up, there will be a Game 7. Because if you couple that with what Steph's going to give you, what Draymond's going to give you, certainly at the defensive end, that's already a given. What Gary Payton has given you consistently throughout the series, it's going back to Golden State for a Game 7. To me, tonight decides the series. Obviously, Lakers win, the series is over. They're going to play Denver in the Western Conference Finals because they all won 4 games. If Golden State wins tonight, they will win Game 7 back at home. This, from the second the Warriors went down 3-1, this was the game. They were going to win Game 5. Lakers did not bring their A game, didn't have to bring their A game. They didn't have to win that game. Warriors were desperate, had to win, fed off the home energy of the crowd. This is the game. On the road against a Lakers team that is yet to lose in the postseason on their home floor. We will see what the health of Anthony Davis is. It looks like, barring something unforeseen, he's going to play. Obviously, scary moment. Got elbowed by Kevon Looney in the head. Had to leave on a wheelchair, which I got to call out Shaq and Chuck for their post-game commentary. I love Shaq and Chuck. Love them. Got all the respect in the world for them. Their commentary on Anthony Davis's concussion that crossed the line. Like, they were making a joke about it. I didn't like that at all. Like, the man couldn't see. The man couldn't stand up upright. What do you want him to do? Tumble and fall on the floor? I mean, come on now. But AD's due for that bad game. You know, I call him, right? Coin flip Davis. It's only landed on tails one time in the series, and that was game 2. It's due. Coin flip Davis. LeBron James, on the other hand, who's been hit or miss in the series from game to game. Fun fact, not all that fun if you're a Lakers fan. LeBron has not scored 30 in a playoff game since the 2020 finals. And I love LeBron. I think he's the greatest ever. But that's what it is. He's not scored 30 since game, I guess it was 5 or 6. I think it was 5 against the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals in 2020. All the pressures on the Lakers, a lot of pressures on the Warriors to force a game 7. This, to me, decides it. I think Steph plays great. I think Klay gives you game 6 Klay. It's a modest game 6 Klay, but it's 27, 6 or 7 threes. No, I'll say 7 threes. 27 points, 7 3-pointers. Draymond gives you great defense. Wiggins chips in a 15 to 17. Gary Payton gives you 9 to 10 points with great defense and great hustle plays. Kevon Looney gives you double-digit rebounds. You pray that Steve Kerr doesn't put Jordan Poole in for more than 5 to 8 minutes, and the Golden State Warriors win this game 107 to 104. I keep seeing this line come up for the Lakers, because the line started Lakers -2. It's now all the way up to Lakers -3. And I saw earlier it was like a 3.5. Some people, I guess, in Vegas are betting Golden State now, because 3.5 feels like a bit much. It's going to be a great game. This to me will be the best game of the series. Thus far, it was game 4, which came down to the wire. Game 6 will decide the series. No question about it. Golden State 107 to 103. Here we go. So, got some comments. John Rivera. What's up, John? John, he says he's back. Appreciate the love, John. It's my guy right there. Barry Grant Jr. If D'Lo has a big game, it's going to be an early night for Golden State. Maybe. But again, D'Lo's been hit or miss in this series. And Golden State has almost dared him. Not in the way that you would dare like a Dillon Brooks. D'Angelo Russell's a much better player than Dillon Brooks, who, by the way, should not have been an all-defensive player. That was ridiculous. But the point is, Golden State has said, we're not going to let LeBron or AD go off. In some cases, particularly with Anthony Davis, it's not been successful. But they said, and you heard Draymond Green talk about it in his podcast earlier this week, Lonnie Walker beating you, you got to live with it. You shake his hand, great job, young man. We'll try and beat you the next game. If it's Lonnie Walker, D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves that beat you, it was a good season. But if LeBron and AD beat you, man, it's going to be a long offseason for the Golden State Warriors. But if the role players get you, then the role players get you. That's just what it is. And Barry says, and Wiggins has a broken rib. That is news to me. I did not know Wiggins had I know he had a rib injury. I saw a doctor talking about that. Let's see what the latest on Andrew Wiggins is off that point. Let's see. Oh, yeah. No, you're right. Coastal cartilage fracture. Okay. So I'm seeing this quote from Kevon Looney from Shoot Around. Because Kevon Looney was saying that in the 2019 finals, he played with a similar injury. I remember that because Looney got hurt in game 2 of that series, came back in game 4 and was just fighting through pain. Gave the Warriors whatever he could, and then we'll just have to come out of games late because he just couldn't take it anymore. The pain was too much. Said that Looney wore a flak jacket. Adrian Wojnarowski tweeted, at this hour, the belief is that Andrew Wiggins will try to play in game 6 tonight. As Kendra Andrews reports, he'll go through his pregame routine and see how his coastal cartilage fracture feels prior to tip. Regardless, shooting will be a challenge. That's the question. But I don't, again, because I know Steph's going to be Steph, I know Gary Payton's going to play well. Looney will give you what he gives you. Clay will be Game 6 Clay. I don't think Wiggins has to be near what he was offensively in Game 6 that he was in Game 5. He scored 28 in Game 5. Like, that's like, whoa, there you go. There's the aggressive Andrew Wiggins. I don't think he has to be great offensively for the Warriors to win this game. Yeah, Barry. By the way, if I was Kerr, win or lose, I'm not playing pool. I'm with you. He says, I'm sending a message to the front office. To me, if the Warriors go out tonight or if they win the championship, you move on from Jordan Poole while you can. Because he has clearly shown himself to be one of those dudes that once he gets the bag, he's chilling. He's got his ring. He's got his bag. Now he's just kicking his feet up. He thinks he's one of the main guys of the dynasty. No, you're not. Let's see. Philip, good point by Philip here. What's up, Philip? He says, the key is for the Lakers to not shoot the ball, drive it down the Warriors' throat, because every time we do that, we get Draymond and Looney in foul trouble, and we win. And that's something, too. The Lakers, and I've been critical of LeBron in this series, and even in the last series against Memphis. Like, bro, you haven't shot the ball that well at all from three-point range. And as good as Golden State is on the perimeter defensively, they don't have that many bodies in the interior. Draymond can do what he can, so can Looney, but that's about it. JaMychal Green's a shot maker, but he's not really much of an interior presence on the defensive end. So I'm with you. I think that's the Lakers' method to win. If you try to beat Golden State your own game, you're getting run out of the gym. Beating Golden State at their own game, you're getting run out of the gym. Like, you can't. Nobody can shoot like Golden State can. Play into your strengths, play through Anthony Davis, and see what happens. But I'm telling you, the coin is going to flip to tails tonight. Barry, the 30-point thing is a moot point. He's talking about Clay. He's 38. Come on now. You are such a hater on Klay Thompson. It's unbelievable. He says, I'm curious to see how Wiggins scores 17 with bad ribs. Well, now that, see, I knew he had injured ribs. I did not know they were fractured. I did not know that. So I appreciate that information, Barry. So no, I'm going to back off the Wiggins 17, but I still say he gives them good defense. Philip, I think Austin Reeves scores, 25. Schroeder gets 20. Well, Schroeder has played well in the series, and we get the W back at home, undefeated at home this year. And that's why I said Game 6 was the game for Golden State. If you can just find a way to steal Game 6, you will win Game 7. And the 180 turnaround with LeBron and with Steph will be complete. Mano y mano. LeBron comes back from 3-1 down on Steph in 2016. Steph comes back down from 3-1 on LeBron in 2023. It's meant to be. I said it since the second Game 4 ended. Golden State will win this series. And by the way, I had Warriors in 7 to begin with. I said this thing's going to the wire. Like, it's going to face the 7th and decisive game. Steph, I know what I'm getting from him. But Klay Thompson, I'm going to need that Game 6 Klay tonight. If we get Game 6 Klay, by the way, too, something else, and then I'll move on. I promise. I've spent a lot of time on Boston, Philly, and then LA Golden State. Think about this. In Game 4, when AD played really well, LeBron, while it was a quiet 27, it was still 27, and Lonnie Walker having literally the game of his life. Let me make sure I want to make sure I'm getting the stat right, because it's kind of mind-boggling and very encouraging if you're a Warriors fan like myself. Let's do the math here. So, Klay Thompson and Jordan Poole combined shot 3 for 15 from the field and 3 for 11 from three-point range and scored a combined 9 points. And the Lakers won by 3. Just think about that. The other two backcourt guys with Steph, Klay and Poole, were awful in Game 4. AD played well. LeBron played pretty well. Lonnie Walker, by his standards, was amazing. And Golden State lost by a 3. I'm just saying. Yeah. And Barry says, you definitely did. I give you credit. That's what I'm saying. I'm not a sucker. I'm not, listen, I'm not somebody who, when I make a bold prediction, I just back off of it. When I make a bold prediction, I believe in just, I hear Draymond Green say all the time, stand on that. I'm going to go down with the ship. No. Do I think I'm going down tonight? No, I'm not going down tonight. I'm just telling you right now. Warriors in 7. Barry, game 6. You ain't right. You ain't right, bro. Game 6, Clay. Gonna be 6 fillet. Lakers send y'all back on that bus. Oh, yeah. The more I get quotes like that, the better I feel about this game. I'm just saying. As I'm telling you, I knew the Lakers had a big, passionate fan base, which I have no problem with, by the way. No problem with. I want the fan base to be passionate. So I didn't like. When it bothers me is that the fan base thinks the team is better than they are. That's what bothers me. That's not the case with the Lakers fans. But man, Lakers fans been talking a lot of junk since they went up in this series. I'm just saying, let's what Michael Jordan say. It's easy to talk when you up. When it's 0-0, okay. Not the Lakers players. Schroeder's talking a little bit junk, but that's nothing crazy. Schroeder's played well in this series. It's not like Dylan Brooks talking junk and can't back it up to save his freaking NBA career. Schroeder's playing well in this series, particularly in the offensive end and defensively. But I'm telling you, game 6 Clay. I'm gonna be coming back on Monday's show with my Steph jersey. Well, maybe my Clay. Maybe I'll bring my Clay jersey out if it's game 6 Clay. Because we win tonight. Lakers, you will take that bus, that plane, that whatever, train, I don't care. You'll take that to San Francisco. You get beat, you come home. And it'll have been, given how bad the Lakers were by February, it'll have been a good season. If you had told me the Lakers lose a game 7 on the road in the second round, considering how bad they were in 13th place in the West. That's something to build off of. And the Lakers will be contenders next year. The Golden State win tonight by the skin of our teeth, but we're winning tonight, and we will win game 7, not in a blowout fashion, but fairly comfortably. Leave no doubts. Come on, Clay. All right, moving on to the Denver-Phoenix series. That one has been a doozy. So, I had Nuggets in 6 coming in. If you'd have asked me to predict, because I expected Denver and Phoenix, based on the playoff bracket, I expected them to meet in the second round. I think we all did. And if you'd have told me coming into the playoffs, okay, they're going to face off, give me your prediction, I'd have probably said Suns in 6 or 7. Because my thing was, when they made the trade for KD, they gave up a ton of depth, gave up Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, who was really good for the Brooklyn Nets this year, and I'm forgetting the other player that they gave up in that trade. I know they traded Jake Crowder as well, which that was a sneaky big loss, and I'm blanking on who the third player was that they included with that deal with the Nets. It's not coming to my mind at this moment. But they get Kevin Durant to pair with Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton. And I said, I didn't think the Suns' lack of depth would cost them because the bench gets shortened a lot in the postseason. It's like 7 guys that really play major minutes. It's your starting 5, or maybe it's like 4 of the 5, and then 2 or 3 guys off the bench. But Phoenix was having to win games because how bad Chris Paul was and how bad, I guess, predictably DeAndre Ayton was. Phoenix was having to win games in the first round against the Clippers. By the way, a Clippers team, and this is when I sold my stock on Phoenix. Game 5 in the Suns arena, up 3-1. Everybody knows they're going to win the series. Clippers don't have Kawhi or Paul George. So the Clippers don't have their best 2 players rather. Suns are at home, up 3-1. Westbrook, who was really good in the series, but he bookended it. He started it into the game with awful shooting performances. Game 1 and Game 5. Westbrook was terrible in Game 5. Shot 3 for 18. And it was tied with 2 minutes to go. Despite Devin Booker, which he did for a majority of the playoffs, literally being on fire. Fire coming out of his eyeballs. Cannot miss. Kevin Durant giving you 30+ on a night-to-night basis. And the game's tied with 2 minutes left. I'm like, okay, I'm out on Phoenix. I'm out. This is like the Clippers G League team out here. And you're struggling to put them away. Whereas in Denver, on the other hand, and I heard a lot of Nuggets skeptics, and I bought in the Nuggets around All-Star break, saying, they played the worst team in the playoffs in the first round. Okay, But Jokic is still great. Jamal Murray has a really good playoff history. KCP's been there and done that, and he played great, by the way, last night in Game 6. Bruce Brown has been good in the playoffs. Michael Malone, I've said it for the longest time, is a good coach. Makes adjustments. I mean, can we forget the fact that just 3 years ago, this team was down 3-1 twice and won both series. Now they're down 3-1 in the next series to the Lakers and lost, but that Lakers team was really good. Jokic was fantastic. Murray was a little inconsistent. He was sick last night. But Caldwell Pope played well. Bruce Brown played really well. The bench guys for Denver did their thing. And let's face it, Michael Malone outcoached Monty Williams in this series. Now we can make the case, hey, Monty Williams just ran out of bodies. Chris Paul went down in Game 2. DeAndre Ayton went down, I guess it was in Game 5. And so it's just Kevin Durant and Devin Booker out there fending for themselves. I understand that. And I expected the Suns to lose last night. But that's the second straight year that in a closeout elimination game, you've been down 30 at halftime. At home. Obviously, we all remember Game 7 last year against Dallas. Phoenix won 65 games. And I had that series. I remember predicting that series. I said, Dallas is going to push them 7. Luka's going to get it to a Game 7. But Phoenix, the better team, they'll pull it out. And they just melted. We're down, I think was it 57? Yeah, it was 57-27 at the half in Game 7 last year. Down 30. And then this year, down, was it 81-51? I want to make sure I'm getting the halftime score. I'm pretty sure it was 81-51. Could there be at least a little defense in a season-deciding game? Maybe. And I gotta be. I'm not gonna. I don't want to be brutal on Devin Booker because to me his play is the only reason that this even got to a Game 6. He didn't play well last night. Only 4 for 13, 12 points. For me, for Devin Booker, it was dude just ran out of gas. He ran out of gas. He was so good against the Clippers in the first round. Like it was an argument between 3 guys as the best player in the playoffs. It was Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Devin Booker. Like who's the best player of the playoffs among those 3? Book just ran out of gas. Like that's just what it is. That's not to excuse his performance last night, but I think even had Book been amazing, I mean, folks, they lost by 25. They were never in the game. Who I will be hard on, though, is Kevin Durant. You guys know I'm a big KD fan, and I have nothing but love and respect. I've said that I don't think he's the greatest scorer ever, but he's the most gifted. He's the most gifted scorer ever. He makes scoring the basketball look more effortless than I think any player that's ever played the game. And I have nothing but admiration for him for helping my Warriors win back-to-back championships in 2017 and 2018. But this falls on him. Not all of it. Suns didn't have depth. Monty Williams didn't coach that good of a series. But could you put up a little bit better than a 8 for 19, 23-point performance? And by the way, KD was 1 for his first 10 to start the game. Like, just looked out of it. Body language wasn't good. And that's the thing I've always said about KD. Can he be the best player in a championship team? Of course he can. Can he lead you to a championship? Kind of a different story. It's like I've always said the same thing about Kawhi Leonard as well. Now, if you ask me who I want to start a franchise, I'm taking KD over Kawhi any day of the week because Kawhi's never available. Especially when you need him most, as the Clippers found out the hard way this year. And last year. And the year before that, really. But Kevin Durant's never been the guy who, if you're down in a series or you're in a huge Game 6 facing elimination or a Game 7, he's never been the guy to unite the team. He is just, and he would say in his own words, he's just out there to play basketball. He's a hooper. I don't think anybody in the NBA is more obsessed with just the game of basketball. I'm not talking about taking care of your body. I'm not talking about, running plays. I'm just talking about just basketball than Kevin Durant. He is, if Jim Rat were a person, it'd be KD. That's who he is. Remarkably talented. You put him on a team, they're instantly championship contenders. But he's not the guy to lead you to a championship. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. There's plenty of guys in the history of the NBA who have been on championship teams have been huge contributors to championship teams, but aren't necessarily the guy that galvanizes the locker room. Not necessarily the guy who pulls the team together in a big, like, for example, tonight, you got two teams that are down 3-2, the Knicks and the Warriors. Both guys have a player, ironically, in both instances, their point guard, who are going to rally the team together and say, guys, get the team ready to play in Jalen Brunson and Steph Curry. Both are tremendous leaders. Is Jalen Brunson better than KD? Not on any universe is he a better player than KD. But he's a better leader. Is it a knock on KD? I don't think so. I'm not going to ask somebody to be something that they're not. But what it is a blueprint for the Phoenix Suns. For the record, I think KD last summer recognized this. Remember when he requested a trade for the Brooklyn Nets last summer before he ultimately decided to come back to Brooklyn? Before then he was, mid-season traded to Phoenix this past February, or 3 months ago, rather. KD, by the teams that he reportedly requested a trade to, kind of admitted, I'm not going to be the galvanizing force of a championship team in terms of my leadership. With Phoenix, which he requested a trade to last summer, and he obviously is with now, Chris Paul. We could bang on Chris Paul in terms of he's getting older and playoff performances, lot to be desired, but he is a leader. Miami, Jimmy Butler is the heart and soul of the Heat. By the way, Udonis Haslem is still there. Like Eric Spoelstra, galvanizing leading force coach. Those two teams are who he requested a trade to, I think for good reason. I think he recognized in Brooklyn, who had no leadership. I guess if you want to argue who the leader was, it'd probably be Kyrie Irving, and we saw how that worked out. Yeah, KD and I don't need a coach to the tune of them winning a single playoff series together. I think KD recognizes who he is. I think the Suns front office needs to recognize that as well and build around him and Devin Booker. I think bring some veterans in, bring some, some shooters in. I know Landry Shamet had a big game 4. Maybe bring Landry Shamet back. Bringing in another big man. They got to move on from DeAndre Ayton. Like, the ship has sailed. I think the relationship was fractured between him and Monty Williams last year, and it has not recovered since. He has not looked like the same basketball player since that happened. Maybe move him to Indiana for oh my gosh, I'm forgetting. Miles Turner. That could work. Most importantly, bring in a veteran. Bring in a PJ Tucker, who him and KD are close. PJ Tucker in Philadelphia, depending on what happens with the Sixers this year. Maybe bring in a PJ Tucker. But I don't know if Tuck is a free agent or is under contract for next year with the Sixers. I'll have to check that. But make a move to acquire him. He'd be a great galvanizing force for that locker room. But the Suns got to recognize who they are and what they need to improve on. And if they do that, yeah, they'll be a championship contender next year. But that's their reality. Let's see. Oh, boy. Barry, Black Cat strikes again. Number 1, KD slips on air, out for 4 to 6 weeks. I remember that. Yeah, and that was killer for Phoenix because he couldn't play with them for a long time. The hype train begins. As he said, number 2, the hype train begins. Number 3, Ayton quits mid-games. Number 4, CP3 gets hurt. Number 5, Book plays well. Number 6, Book skips pressure. Black Cat is undefeated. Like, listen, CP deserves blame. He don't deserve all the blame. I mean, come on now. Not all of it. Patrick, I don't want to hear KD is the best player on the planet. This was embarrassing and utterly disappointing for Phoenix. Major changes are coming, starting with Ayton. You have to move on from Ayton. Like that to me is the first thing Phoenix has got to do. Is I hesitate to say cancer in the locker room because I think a cancer in the locker room is like a Kyrie Irving. Like, he just comes in and just sucks the air out of a locker room. Whether it's with his strange beliefs and philosophies, whether it's how he plays basketball, whether it's how he tries, keyword, lead a team, how he's uncoachable. I don't think Ayton's in that category necessarily, but he's darn close. And I don't think when they brought him back, because I remember Indiana was going to bring him in last year, and then Phoenix matched their offer and brought him back for another year because he was a restricted free agent. I remember when that happened, talking about my show, I was like, it's kind of a strange move given how Game 7 went. It's just odd. I think that's the first move they make this offseason. Barry, let this be a lesson to teams that want to trade the cabinet for a player. That formula doesn't work anymore, especially for KD. That's not the guy you want to give up the world for. Not at this stage. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think if there's anybody among players you would give up the cabinet for, I think KD's in that category. He's proven too much over the course of his 15 years in the NBA. But Phoenix has to recognize now he's not going to be the guy, once again, to lead them to a championship. If 2 years ago KD was in Phoenix, they might win the championship because Chris Paul is a much better player in 2021 than he is now. Like CP3 is the leader of the team, but A, he's unavailable, and B, folks, he's 38 years old. Like there's only so much he can give you at this stage in his career. Maybe this was a long-term thing for Phoenix, where it was they recognized, and again, I really don't blame them for making the trade. Their championship window, to me, was slammed shut when they lost to Dallas in the conference semifinals last year. They were not even going to be in contention for any more championships. They had to make a splash move. Had to. Otherwise, they were just going to fizzle out into basketball irrelevance. Maybe it's a situation where you give up your depth, you don't have it quite enough to win a championship this year, you take your medicine, you go out in the second round, and then you go all aggressive in the offseason. Like, Phoenix is, to me, probably going to be the number one team I focus on in terms of what do they do to make their basketball team better. Because they can't run this team back next year. They can't. They had to make a splash move. Now it's how do they address the clear deficiencies they have in their roster at this point forward. Patrick, I didn't buy into Phoenix when the trade was made. Everybody had them in the Western Conference Finals. Last night was about KD, and he bombed it. We don't hold KD to the same standards as LBJ. Well, that I agree with. That I 100% agree with. That the whole, and I think there was a brief moment around 2019, maybe 2021, where KD was probably the best player in the world. Where it was, I remember that series against Milwaukee. He was just on another planet. I mean, he didn't have anything to work with in Brooklyn. Kyrie was hurt. Harden was on one leg. Had Steve Nash as a coach and still took the Bucks, who ended up winning the championship, to a Game 7. I think there was a brief stretch in which he was the best player on the planet, but the notion that, to me, when someone's the best player in the world, you can tell by how they're criticized in the media. Because we expect a different level of excellence from them in the biggest of games. That's why, to me, for the last year, Steph has been in that spot. Because when Steph doesn't play well, oh my God, the world's falling. Or the sky is falling. Everybody's all over Steph when he doesn't play well. For 15 years, that's how it was with LeBron. If LeBron plays how many bad playoff games has LeBron had? Not that many. Like, I'm talking about just bad, where he does not play well in his prime. But when LeBron would have an off game, oh my God, how could you ever compare to Michael Jordan? How could you do such a thing? Steph, similar thing. How could you compare Steph Curry to Magic Johnson? He needed KD. I remember going to Game 5, there was this weird narrative. Steph is not clutch. Like, guys, he's leading the playoffs by a mile in fourth quarter scoring. He's clutch. There's a video on YouTube from before the 2022 playoffs, by the way. It was like 10 minutes of Steph Curry hitting clutch playoff shots. Like, if you could put together a 10-minute compilation, he's pretty clutch. But the criticism, I'm with you, Patrick. The criticism is different. KD's never really gotten that. He hasn't. And let's not act like he hasn't been with some really good basketball teams throughout his career. Now, I'll give him my soapbox for a minute. Hold on. Yeah, Patrick, as an LBJ fan, this is the one area he's excelled in versus KD. Leadership, accountability, and everyone follows. 100%. And Patrick says, Phoenix should trade for Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. It would help space the floor and add more shooting. I agree. The only thing about that, Patrick, is how much I agree with you in terms of spacing. Because, by the way, something too is Miles Turner can shoot the three. He's a guy who can space the floor out. The only thing that concerns me is defensively, because I've also read that they might move on from Chris Paul, which I wouldn't be all that opposed to. Especially, my thing is you could move Chris Paul to the bench, but man, he's making a lot of money to be coming off the bench. Bring in, how about this? How about a Mike Conley? Mike Conley's a tremendous leader. He is a better player at this stage than Chris Paul is. Bring in Mike Conley. That's an idea. But I worry about that defensively. Miles Turner, he'll be great in the interior at the rim. Miles Turner, and by the way, KD's a good shot blocker. But on the perimeter, Book's not a great defender. He's fine, but he's not great on defense. Hield is not a defender at all. I don't know if that works. To me, you would probably have to have Buddy Hield come off the bench. And it's a matter of whether or not he buy into that. Patrick, Ayton's immaturity issues can't be ignored. He quit on his team and doesn't care about basketball. Walking away from the huddle in a heated moment when it's a close game. Yeah, that's like I said, I thought it wasn't just that Phoenix lost to Dallas, it was how they lost. Getting embarrassed at home. CP3's bad, Book's bad. And while I love Book, I did not like him skipping the post-game press conference, as Barry mentioned in the comments. I don't like that when players, especially star players, to me, that, again, comes back down to accountability and things of that nature. Like, I didn't love that at all from Book. To me, it's win, lose, or draw. You face the media, you answer the questions, and you get out of there. Like, you're there for, 10, 12 minutes at max? Now, listen, I'm not an NBA player, so I can't speak to how it sucks when you lose a playoff series, especially when you don't play well. But you got to face the music. To the last playoff series going, and a series that, frankly, I think is going to end tonight, the Miami Heat and the New York Knicks. Now, Game 6 is in Miami. Heat are favored by 6.5. I think, I don't know if they'll, maybe I'll make a prediction by the end of the segment, because I've got Miami winning. I don't know if I have them covering that. 6.5 feels like just a little too much. But this series for me, because I had Miami in 6 coming in, so I'm obviously picking them tonight because that kind of lines up with my prediction. But for me, this series came down to a few factors. Number one, Jimmy was going to be Jimmy. Playoff Jimmy. If you don't buy into playoff Jimmy, then I can't help you, because that's what he does. He's great when the moment calls for him to be great. Always. And as good as Tom Thibodeau has been, particularly in helping some, I don't want to say marginally talented Knicks teams, but in an Eastern Conference that has some really good teams, the Knicks should not be the 5 seed. So that has a lot to do with coaching. That has a lot to do with them obviously getting Jalen Brunson, who not only, I don't care what anybody says, has been the best player in their team consistently throughout the season, but has been their unquestioned leader. Like, he's exactly what they needed. And Dallas really made a big mistake in letting him go. How do you go from Jalen Brunson to Kyrie Irving? Like, that is not a good move. Point is, Miami defensively was where, to me, I thought the series would be won. When you talk about a Heat team, that we can talk about the band of misfit toys, so to speak, that they have, guys like Max Strus. They have the, I think the Caleb Martin kid is his name, Caleb Martin, Duncan Robinson, and old Kyle Lowry, and old Kevin Love. The one thing that those those guys can do consistently, they can shoot pretty well. Even without Tyler Hero, who we'll see if he's able to come back at some point in the playoffs should the Knicks advance. Those are all guys that can knock it down. Whereas with the Knicks, they've got shooters. Quentin Grimes can shoot. Jalen Brunson can shoot the 3. RJ Barrett from time to time. But they don't have guys that are just knockdown three-point shooters. And I feel like that was going to expose them. And in one player in particular who has been bad in this series, and no surprise to me, Julius Randle. He's not, and again, he's never really been a shooter. He can knock down the 3, kind of similar to RJ Barrett, but to me, he takes way too many three-point shots, especially I watch a few Knicks games in the regular season. It's like, bro, like you're good in the mid-range. You're good, depending on who the guy is guarding you. You can get to the basket. Like, stop shooting threes. That's not your game. Miami has exposed that aspect of the Knicks. And it kind of goes back to something that I've said this for a long time. Outside of Giannis, and by the way, given how this year's playoffs went, I think now even Giannis is going to have to address this. You can't be a great team or a great player. And I'm sorry, I don't think you can be a championship level team if you don't have at least 5 or 6 guys that can consistently knock down a three-point shot. The way the game is played today, the way the game is officiated today, you have got to have guys that you can trust to knock down shots. The Heat do. By the way, Jimmy Butler isn't that good of a three-point shooter. But if you look at his three-point percentage in his career in the regular season, the playoffs, it's night and day. It's why I remember last year, Remember, Jimmy was amazing in Game 7 against Boston, and Miami makes this improbable comeback down the final stretch. The Celtics just self-implode, and Jimmy takes that shot with about 20 seconds left to win the game, and a lot of people criticized him for it. And I remember I defended him on it. It's like, guys, if he goes to the rack, makes the layup, assuming Miami gets a stop on Boston and the game goes to overtime, Jimmy was going to be gassed. He had played like 47. Dude was going to be shot physically. Kind of like we saw from Kevin Durant in Game 7 against Milwaukee, like just flat out ran out of gas, ran out of energy. That's what I thought we were going to see from Jimmy Butler. So I'm fine with going for the kill shot in a situation where if he'd have told Heat fans with like 3 minutes left in the game, you're going to have a chance to go for the kill shot, they'd have taken that. So I didn't have an issue with him taking that shot last year. So Jimmy's good shooting the three in the playoffs. Kyle Lowry can knock it down. Even with no Tyler Hero, you got Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, Caleb Martin, Kevin Love, who I thought was a great addition in the buyout market. I was hoping my Warriors were able to land him. And so hats off to the Heat. But again, Eric Spoelstra making adjustments. And again, something else too. The Knicks were supposed to win Game 5, which they did. But that was Jimmy's first kind of off playoff game. I mean, Jimmy, if you look at his numbers, 5 for 12, 19 points. Now, he gave you 9 assists and 7 rebounds. So, again, another mark of a great player is finding other ways to get involved, to hopefully help your teammates, show up. But Gabe Vincent as well, somebody else who can knock down the three. That's been exposed from the Knicks, and what's helped Miami jump out to a 3-1 lead. Again, they lost Game 5. I think they're going to close out tonight. And I'm telling you, as up and down as Boston is, as all over the place, especially in do-or-die games as Philadelphia is, are we sure Miami's not going to the finals? Because I don't know. What I'm seeing, they have been the most consistently good team in the maybe in the playoffs, certainly in the Eastern Conference. That's inarguable. Boston got taken 6 games by freaking Atlanta, who had, to me, no business. I had Boston sweeping in that series. I think that was the only sweep I predicted in the first round was the Celtics over the Hawks. That sucker went 6 games. And the Hawks, by the way, could have won Game 6. That one went down to the wire. You got Philadelphia, who, while they swept Brooklyn, I could care less. Brooklyn gets swept every year. It's kind of their brand in the first round to get swept. But for Philadelphia, in the biggest of games, you can't trust them. Milwaukee went down to Miami in a gentleman's sweep. And the Knicks, we're seeing some of their flaws get exposed by Miami, by a well-coached, good veteran team. I'm starting to think Miami Heat in the NBA Finals. Now, would I love to see a Game 7 in the Garden? Heck yeah, I'd love to see it. But would I also love my prediction to be correct? I think I'd like that just a little bit more. Heat in 6, said that before the season started. They'll close it out tonight. I think they do so. Let's go 115 to 101. 115-101 Heat win. So I do think they cover the 6.5 point spread. Although I'd be skeptical of that line, but I'd take it. Let's see. John Rivera, they are dogs. That's right. You don't have to tell me twice. That's their culture. Heat culture. People kind of laugh at it. Playoff Jimmy, people laughed at that. Folks, that's a real thing. And that's what I love about the playoffs year in and year out. We saw it last year with the Warriors winning the championship, and we're seeing it this year in the playoffs with certain teams that have been successful. Man, culture's so important. You can have, how did the Brooklyn experience work? Or rather, experiment. How'd that work? You just had 3 amazing players in their prime with no structure, no culture. It shows you that while coaching in the NBA is not as important, to me at least, as coaching is in the NFL, it's still really important. Especially as these series go to 5 and 6, and especially in 7. Can you make the adjustments? Do you have the right feel for certain guys? Which lineups work together, depending on what matchup the other team throws at you? Culture matters, coaching matters, and experience matters. I mean, look at the teams that are here. Miami, on the verge of their 3rd conference finals appearance in 4 years. Lakers, won a championship 2.5 years ago. Warriors, defending champions, dynasty. Nuggets, 2nd Western Conference Finals in the last 4 years. Like, they've been here before. Who else? Boston just went to the finals last year. Like, there's a lot of guys, a lot of teams that have been here and done that. So that's what I've loved the most about these playoffs. Is it's kind of reinforced that, man, to be in championship contention. By the way, the Knicks should not be in this position. They're of the teams left in the East, they're probably the least talented. But culture, leadership from Brunson, Thibodeau, that's why they're here. Barry, three players that will have new homes. Randall, Poole, Ayton. I hope you're right in the middle one, by the way. Ayton, I think, there's no way Ayton comes back to Phoenix. I genuinely cannot see a scenario in which DeAndre Ayton is a Phoenix Sun next year. Jordan Poole, I hope you're right. I'm crossing my fingers on that. And and Julius Randle, who, again, I've been skeptical on. I know he averaged 25 this year, made an all-star game. The fact that Randle was an all-star over Brunson, to me, was criminal. Somebody will take him. He's a good player, but the way he plays kind of gets exposed the later the playoffs go. John, Giannis is gone this year. It's the best time to move on for both teams. Absolutely. Like, you take advantage. Giannis is the best player out east. You got to take advantage of this opportunity. John, the Heat are dogs, but they're not winning a championship. Look, I think the winner of this Lakers-Warriors series is going to win the championship, honestly. So, in theory, I agree with you. But are you telling me with their defense, with their shooting, with their coaching? I mean, you want to talk about Boston and Philly. I don't trust Doc Rivers as far as I can throw him. And Joe Mazzulla, I don't know if really now credit to Mazzulla. Again, he made that move last night, inserting Robert Williams into the starting lineup, and it paid huge dividends for the Celtics. But he's somebody else who's never been here before. Eric Spoelstra, he's got 2 championship rings. He's been to the finals 5 times. He's been there and done that. He understands how playoff basketball works. So, again, I think they win tonight. They get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and I'm not so sure that they don't beat Boston or Philly. I'm definitely picking them if they face Philly. Boston, I know the Celtics beat him last year, but if that Jimmy Butler shot goes down, it's probably it's probably Warriors Heat in the finals last year. I'm just saying. Sometimes there are teams that you don't bet against, players you don't bet. I don't bet against Miami. Not with their structure, and I darn sure don't bet against the evil genius that is Pat Riley. That's for certain. All right, last topic of the day. Again, great to be back in the studio. Great to be doing a show after basically a week off. Although I don't know if I'd call it necessarily a week off. I love Disney, by the way, guys. Like, if you know about my 3 major interests, they are sports, presidents. I literally did a 10-part series on the U.S. presidents last year. If you haven't got an opportunity to listen to that, please check it out on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. It's on a playlist, 10-part series, U.S. presidents, Isaac Lawson, myself. Check it out. I love presidential history, and I love Disney World. Those are my 3 major interests. I love Disney. Love it. Would live there if I had got the opportunity to, in a fantasy world. But man, it takes a toll on you physically. I'm just telling you right now. It takes a toll on you physically. So that's why I say I don't know if it's a week off, but if there's any place that I want to, unless I try to keep myself in shape, work out the whole bit, but if there's any place that I want to drive myself to the point of exhaustion almost physically, it'd be Disney World. So that or playing pickup basketball. Point being, it's great to be back, and I appreciate everybody tuning in, watching the show very much. One last segment revolving around the NFL. So this isn't arguable. No league does a better job at marketing than the NFL. It's not even close. I mean, we watch how many games last year? Remember we lamented about it, and I think it will continue to be the case because of lack of rest. I think it's a bad philosophy for the NFL. But how many Thursday night games last year were just garbage? And you check the ratings the next day, like, that many people watch this? Like, I watch an NFL game from the 60s before I watch this. I remember there was a Denver Colts game that was awful. There was a Bears Commanders game that was bad. Like, there was some flat out unwatchable games on Thursday night last year. And yet we still watch because the NFL is amazing at marketing their product. And one of the examples of this is how they put out the NFL schedule. There's this build-up, all 32 teams, the social media teams just go all out. I thought two teams in particular, their social media teams deserve an award. The LA Chargers, who did something really, really interesting with their QR code that I thought was hilarious. They put a QR code with the Las Vegas Raiders. You've got to Google it. It's hilarious. just totally ripping Raiders fans, which to me was foul. I love Raiders fans. And then the Tennessee Titans. Like, you've seen these TikToks where it'll be like a football fan going to like a family member or loved one who doesn't know anything about the NFL and ask them to name this team's logo, and it'll be the most ridiculous answers ever. The Tennessee Titans basically did that to announce their schedule with like just random people on the street in Nashville. It was hilarious. You've got to check it out. But the NFL schedule came out last night, and there's a couple takeaways. Number one, I just want to give the NFL a round of applause. A round of applause for putting the Detroit Lions on opening Thursday night against the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City's going to win. Vegas has already 4 months out put up the line. The Kansas City -7. I would take them to cover. It's banner night. They're at home. It's defending champions. They're not losing that game. And Andy Reid is historically awesome in September. But I'm telling you, Detroit, your Lions. Remember, I was very skeptical on Mr. Dan Campbell, the head coach of the Detroit Lions. I ripped his opening press conference, talk about the kneecap biting and all this and all that. I was very critical of him. But this is a guy who's built the culture. You saw the Lions got off to a rough start last season, but they have one of the best offenses in the NFL. Jared Goff was outstanding last year, probably his best or second best year as a pro. And their defense, which was a glaring weakness, they addressed it in the draft, in free agency, particularly in the secondary. The Lions will lose opening night to Kansas City, but make no mistake about it. I'm looking at this schedule. I am seeing a lot of W's. I mean, you look at Kansas City. Start at the North Kansas City. You're gonna be 0-1, but you got Seattle at home, Falcons at home, who are rebuilding, at Green Bay on a short week against a team that you have owned over the last year, Carolina at home, rebuilding, at Tampa Bay, rebuilding. Now at Baltimore, that's probably a loss. Raiders on a Monday night in Detroit. I'm going to give the Lions a win there. I do not buy into the Raiders at all this year. At the Chargers, I mean, which Chargers are you going to get? That's kind of a toss-up. Bears, you'll win that one. Packers, we'll see. I think you probably win that one at home on Thanksgiving Day. Lions at Saints. I'll give the Saints a W there. At Chicago. And then you got the Broncos at home, at the Vikings, at the Cowboys, and then at home for the Vikings again. I think Detroit's going to win 12 games this year and get to the NFC Championship. You heard it here first. The Detroit Lions are going to win the NFC North. They are going to win their wild card game, and they are going to win their divisional game, and they will get to the NFC Championship game.
Kneecap.
Everybody's going to get a kneecap all season long. I buy into the Lions. And by the way, you want to talk about bright futures? Jared Goff is a good quarterback. I'd say fringe top 10. Fringe. I wouldn't put him there, but fringe, given how he played last year. And by the way, the Lions offensive coordinator, I'm blanking on his name. I know he got head coach interviews. He's going to be a head coach in 2024. You've got this offense, as good as it is, and now you're going to plug Hendon Hooker in 2024. Lions fans, y'all have been through a lot. Your wait for relevance is going to be rewarded this year and in years to come. So that's a team that, in terms of the schedule, I think got a big-time break. A team that I think got, in some ways, kind of screwed over by the schedule makers was a playoff team last year, and it was the New York Giants. You look at the Giants' schedule. You got Dallas, Cardinals, at the Cardinals, at the Niners, Seahawks, Dolphins, at the Bills, Commanders to start the season. That's their first 7 games. And then you got home against the Jets, which that'd have been a home game regardless because it's New York versus New York, and then at the Raiders, and then at the Cowboys, and then at the Commanders. If you look at, let me count this, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. If you look at the New York Giants' first 11 games of this season, they play, let me make sure I'm getting this right. Okay. 7 of their first 11 games are on the road. And by the way, these road games are no joke. at the Niners, at the Dolphins, at the Bills, at the Cowboys. These are some tough road environments here that we're talking about. Like, I was skeptical of the Giants last year. I gave them their props when they beat Minnesota in that playoff game because I didn't think they could. And then they went, and I stupidly picked them to upset the Eagles the next week, and then Philly just tore them apart. I don't think the Giants are going to be last in the NFC East because I think Washington's just kind of in a tank job right now. But man, 7 of your first 11 are on the road. And by the way, it's not like your home games are that much easier. Cowboys at home, Seahawks at home, and Jets. Now, that would have been a home game regardless, but man, there are some tough home games for the Giants to start the season. By the way, I thought the other New York team, the Jets, kind of got screwed over as well to open their season. And some of it has to do with the fact that Aaron Rodgers is in town and everybody's going to watch the Jets this year, and rightfully so. They're going to be I'm going to talk about the Jets a lot this year. But they start Buffalo at home on a Monday night, at the Cowboys, which I think is a win, by the way, because Aaron Rodgers owns the Cowboys. Patriots at home, Chiefs at home. That's golly. At Denver, which is a tough place to win. At the Giants, and then you got from there Chargers, Raiders, Bills, Dolphins. I mean, the schedule gets easier throughout. Commanders in there, Texans, Falcons, Raiders. I don't think are going to be very good this year. But out the gates, don't be shocked if the Jets are like 1-4, 2-3, which I don't think the sky will be falling. I think the Jets will probably still get in the playoffs, but man, that's new quarterback, new makeup to your roster, new offensive coordinator. That's a lot. Now, I think the Giants got a worse break than the Jets did, because I think the Giants are near as talented as the Jets. But man, let Detroit got a break, and the Giants and the Jets, especially the Giants, man, that is going to be a rough start to their season this year. Let's see. Trying to find. John Eric is talking about Eric Spoelstra is the best coach right now, but they're not winning a championship with this team. Okay, I respect that. John, let's go Jets. Let's listen. Like I said, I think it's going to be kind of a rough first month and a half of the Jets. And I think, again, you look at Cleveland and they got the Texans and the Falcons. They've got a lot of winnable games later in the season, so I can see them kind of getting hot. I don't think they'll win the division. I'm actually kind of thinking Miami wins the division, which might sound crazy because you guys think I don't like Tua. I think Tua is a great kid, and I hate that he's had to deal with concussion problems. I just think he's an average starting quarterback in the league. I do not think he's a franchise guy. Now, I don't think he's like Mac Jones or something. I think he's bad, but I also don't think he's Derek Carr or Dak Prescott. I'm not even sure he's Kirk Cousins. So, but Miami, again, Buffalo is a team that I think it's undeniable. Buffalo got worse this offseason. They lost Brian Dable last year, and you saw the impact that had on Josh Allen. Wasn't near as good this year or this past season. They lost Leslie Frazier, their defensive coordinator, and they lost some parts of their coaching staff and really key players in their roster. Buffalo will give you a playoff team. Make no mistake about that. But man, Buffalo is going to take a step back this year. I don't think they're winning 13 games. But if you look at the Dolphins' schedule, talking a lot AFC East here, got at the Texans, Chargers, at the Patriots, who I think are going to be awful this year, Broncos, Bills. Broncos, Bills, and then you got Giants, who I think are going to take a step back, Panthers, at the Eagles, that's tough. They'll beat the Patriots, Chiefs, but that is in Germany, so it's not going to be at Arrowhead. Raiders aren't going to be good. And you got the Jets. Commanders aren't going to be very good. Titans will take a step back. Jets, Cowboys, Ravens, Bills. A lot of home games for the Dolphins. Kind of that middle part of the schedule. I'm just saying, I'm not outright predicting the Dolphins win the AFC East, but I'm starting to kind of like their chances. Bills will take a step back. Jets will be good, not great. Giants will absolutely miss the playoffs. And the Lions will go to the NFC Championship game. Those are my main takeaways from the NFL schedule. By the way, for the record, as I said on the Cowboys CamFan show during the draft, shout out to the CamFan guys, I have been basically a free agent fan for 2.5 years, and since January, I have been looking officially for a new NFL team. I've narrowed it down to 2, the San Francisco 49ers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I will be making, I'm sorry, I've already made my decision. I will be announcing it on my show in the coming weeks. I'll need to get the gear to to rep my team, because I'm not just going to be putting on a hat. I need to get like more stuff beyond that to make an announcement, to do it on this show. And it'll be great fun. Look forward to doing that. But isn't it just kind of poetic justice? We may call this the carving it up NFL choice game, because the Niners go to Pittsburgh to play the Steelers in opening weekend. It's like, of course they are. Of course they are. My final two teams are going to face off. San Francisco's a 3-point favorite in that game, by the way, on the road. So, but Brock Purdy won't be there. It'll be Trey Lance. And Pittsburgh tends to get off to rough starts to start the season. So, I don't know. That's gonna be interesting. That's gonna be a good game. It's gonna be a good game. Look, this, of course, it's like, it's fitting. The two teams that I narrow it down to, they're facing on opening day. And by the way, the opening day schedule, last thing, and I'll get out of here. You got Texans Ravens, which by itself doesn't look like all that appealing game, but it's CJ Stroud's first start, we assume, with the Texans against a Ravens team, but by the way, is a 9.5-point favorite in this game in May. And I'm sure that'll change come September. But Lamar's back. I think the Ravens got significantly better this offseason. They added Zay Flowers. They added Odell. Ton of weapons. Great coach. Amazing defense. Lamar is back long-term. It's good feelings in Baltimore. I can see the Ravens winning that game convincingly. Stroud's first start. Houston in a rebuild. Bengals, Browns, the Battle of Ohio. I think Deshaun Watson's going to have a bounce back year with a full offseason. You've got Bucks, Vikings. I don't think that's that great of a game. Titans, Saints. Derek Carr's first start there. Maybe Will Levis starts in place of Tannehill. We'll see. Panthers, Falcons. That's interesting just because of Bryce Young's first start. Jags, Colts. I think the Jags are going to dog walk the Colts. You've got Cardinals, Commanders. That's not a good game. Raiders, Broncos is going to be interesting just for the fact of Sean Payton's first game as the Broncos head coach. Dolphins, Chargers. We get Tua versus Herbert. 5th overall pick versus 6th overall pick. Remember last year they played in December and everybody was on the Tua train. Tua, here he comes. And I said, no. Herbert's the significantly better quarterback, and you saw that play itself out in that game. Herbert vastly outplayed Tua. And I think that's going to happen again. Chargers will start 1-0. Eagles, Patriots. Hey, rematch of Super Bowl 52. Packers, Bears is interesting because that'll be Jordan Love's first start as the man, as QB1 of the Green Bay Packers. The Bears made some moves this offseason. I think hit a home run with their first-round pick. You've got Rams, Seahawks. The Rams looking to have a bounce-back year. Seahawks looking to get better. Cowboys, Giants on Sunday Night Football. I think that'll be a highly rated game just because it's the Cowboys. They always get big ratings. And the Giants at home in New York. That'll be fun. And then you got Bills, Jets. Aaron Rodgers' debut on Monday Night Football. That'll be good. And by the way, the Christmas Day schedule. I mean, get this. How about the NFL is officially, they have taken Christmas Day from the NBA. That used to be the NBA's holiday. They get the best games for Christmas. Now, because the NBA regular season is literally irrelevant, it means nothing. The NFL is like, okay, thank you very much. Thanksgiving's been our day for the longest time. Now we're going to steal Christmas from the NBA. It's like, man, Adam Silver in the league can't catch a break. You got Raiders, Chiefs. That's interesting just because of the fact that it's Kansas City. You've got Giants, Eagles. That's fascinating. And then the cap the night, you've got two teams that I think are absolutely contenders. Ravens, 49ers in San Francisco. That's going to be a good one. Whew. Can you tell I can't wait for the NFL season 4 months out? Hey, I love the NBA. I love the NBA. And I love Major League Baseball. And I love college football. And I love college basketball, particularly March Madness. In terms of excitement, build-up, sense of urgency, ain't nobody does better than the NFL. Nobody. This is going to be a great season. I can already feel it. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. I appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to catch Carving It Up Live on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid YouTube channel. We'll have at least one Game 7 to talk about. I believe we're going to have 2 Game 7s to talk about because I think the Warriors are going to win tonight and force a Game 7 after being down 3-1. Also, we have Heat Knicks, which would either be a Game 7 that night or Miami wins the series. We'll see what happens with that. But be sure to like, share, comment, and take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button. It helps the channel grow exponentially. And be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, on YouTube, as well as wherever you get your podcasts, be it Apple, be it Spotify, be it iHeartRadio, be it Google, anywhere and everywhere you get and listen to your favorite podcast is where you can listen to the Grid Network. You got amazing content creators over there, really, really building something. Very, very excited. Oh, real quick before we get out of here, Patrick Brown, breaking news, Cleveland Browns trade for Zadarius Smith. Wow. Okay, so you get a pass rusher next to Myles Garrett. Be interested to see what the compensation is for that. That's really interesting. I appreciate you chiming that in, Patrick. That's very interesting. So there you go. Loaded show on Monday. It's gonna be a lot of fun, a lot of NBA playoff talk. Catch it on at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific time. Twitter, Carving It Up YouTube channel, Grid YouTube channel. Whew. I'm going to be so insufferable if the Warriors win this series, which we are. Oh, it's going to be so good. Have a great weekend, everybody. Happy Mother's Day to all the incredible moms out there. Mom, I love you so much. You've been such an impactful force in my life, so supportive and loving and selfless, and every great trait that a human being could be is you. I love you, Mom. Shout out to all the mothers out there for this Mother's Day weekend. Shout out to every single one of y'all. God bless you all. Peace out. Dubs in 7. Let's go Game 6, Clay. Come on. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.